a lot of the time, and I don't know if it's a confidence or she's right.
Good morning, everyone. If I could just first of all start off by apologising, we had a few technical issues, shall we say, just leading up to admitting everyone. So, hence the reason we're a few minutes late. So please accept my apologies for that, and hopefully that's the end of the IT glitches for this morning. A very warm welcome to our Switch monthly webinar for the month of March. My name is Jim Brown. I am the chair of the trustees of Switch Forum, and it's my pleasure to welcome everybody to the webinar this morning. The subject of our webinar today is the impact of health and safety incidents, which I'll go into in a wee bit more detail in a wee moment. But first of all, a couple of sort of housekeeping issues. If you're not already muted, if I can ask you to mute your microphones, please. The session is being recorded and it will be shared following the webinar and will be available on our website, and it will be distributed to our membership, people that have signed up for updates, etc. So if you want to turn your camera off, then please do. Any questions you have, if I can ask you to put them through either the chat box or the Q&A function, and we'll take those at the end, and we'll run through, hopefully following a topical discussion this morning on the subject matter. First, a wee bit about Switch. Switch was set up in 2014, and it's a multi-partnership forum. It's made up of organisations across all sectors within the waste and the resource management industry. The aim of Switch, or the fundamentals about Switch and what we're trying to achieve, is to provide leadership in the industry by working collaboratively to raise standards of both health and safety, training, learning and development, and technical competence, and actually to promote the resource sector as an attractive place to have a career. And we rely on Switch is run, and the functions are carried out by volunteers, and we rely on the goodwill of all the voluntary contributions of our Switch ambassadors. So yeah, it's the reason we function is because of the volunteers, and that includes my fellow trustees and everybody that are members of the individual working groups. We work with both governmental and non-governmental organisations who are members of Switch, and you'll see some of those key stakeholders there on the screen. So we work with the Scottish Government, Zero Waste Scotland, the HSE, who we're delighted to have on board. They sit on our quarterly meetings that we hold. You'll see that SQA, ROSPA, RMES, the ESA, Waste Management Network, Energy and Utility Skills, just to give you a flavour for those that don't know some of the organisations that contribute also to Switch. One of the successes, if you like, over the past 12 months, in collaboration with the University of West of Scotland, we have developed and delivered a training course which is targeted at team leader, and supervisor level within the industry. There are two SCQF level 8 20 credit modules for the waste industry, which is a brilliant foundation to invest and build on, and we're delighted that we've been able to create this in conjunction with the UWS. Each module is delivered over 12 weeks, 3 hours per week, and a minimum cohort size of 20 students are being recruited for each. Now, part of the delivery of the modules involve presenters from the waste and resource sector. The first one is on compliance. The first one is on legislation and licensing, and the second one is on compliance and planning. So we are the phase 2, the compliance and planning one, is actually taking place at the moment.
That's very easy to do.
And what we're hoping that will be, once the second one is complete, we're looking to be able to roll that out.
Yeah.
Another
Actually, we could
round
we could calculate
of
that. We could just stay right here. These dates, you're going to be posted. Exciting.
The courses will be running again next year. So we'll push that out on social media, we'll push it out on our website and on our emails as well, for those that may well be interested going forward. Then, hang on a wee second, sorry. So yeah, our April webinar, which we're advertising in advance, if you like. So our webinars are running over the last Thursday of every month. That's when we hold them, so it's a fixed calendar. Last Thursday of every month. And the next one is on industry training on Thursday, 27th of April. Again, held on Teams. And that'll be hosted by Alistair Meldrum and Duncan Simpson. What we would ask you to do is, if you're not already signed up to the Switch Forum to receive links and further details, etc., please do. If you visit switchforum.org.uk, all you have to do is fill in your details, enter your email, and submit that. You will then receive updates, any emails, any information that we send out as Switch. You will receive those on an ongoing basis. And if you are interested in becoming more involved in Switch rather than just receiving updates, then please let us know. We have 2 working groups. We have the health and safety working group, of which I also chair, and there is the education, training and competence working group, which is chaired by Duncan Simpson. So if you're interested in getting involved and actively promoting our activities within your own organisations and networks, and getting involved in supporting events and the other activities that we hold, then please let us know. We'd be delighted to hear from you. Okay, so now on to the subject matter. I'm delighted to welcome Amanda Stewart, who's going to present this morning on impacts of health and safety incidents. So Amanda's currently the Safety, Health, Environment and Quality Manager at WRC Recycling. Amanda's been involved in the waste industry since 2015. She's a professional health and safety practitioner with a wealth of knowledge and experience in health and safety and environmental legislation. She's been a health and safety practitioner since 2005, and she's an active participant in the health and safety working group, and in her role she is continually giving sound advice and implementing effective and efficient processes for and to address health and safety risks and concerns. So is there another slide, Yaz, or are we just moving into the presentation? I'm not sure.
Yeah, just Amanda now.
Right, great. Okay, so what I am going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Amanda, and Amanda's going to give us her experiences on dealing with health and safety incidents and the consequences of health and safety incidents. I mean, we all know they can have a significant impact on everything from financial and reputational issues, but also staff morale and mental health, and the obvious operational impacts. Amanda's going to talk a little bit about that without getting into like specific details of incidents, but just how those how people deal with those impacts and realities, and equally how businesses deal with them as well. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Amanda, who's just going to talk to us. Rather, you won't see slides. Amanda's just going to talk through and share her experiences on the subject matter. So Amanda, welcome, and over to you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Absolutely delighted to be invited to come and talk. It's a very difficult subject to talk about, and maybe that's why we don't talk about it so much. But yeah, so I'm going to just kind of give you a sort of insight to my journey and just how each individual incident impacted me, and how I've learned how to deal with that, and obviously any ongoing issues. So first of all, I think it's important to look at like the stats. So 123 workers were killed within the whole of the working industry that's from the HSE stats. So that's a focus that it doesn't matter if that number goes up and down, you know, we really want that to be zero. And same with the 1.8 million that are dealing with work-related ill health. You know, there was 36.8 million days lost, and there's all these interesting stats out there, but sometimes they're just numbers to us, and it's when you put faces to it, then that really is where you begin to see the impact. And if it hasn't happened to you, and I hope it never does, but you know, that's what you see. Instead of numbers, you just see faces. So I'm going to start off with it was a serious incident that happened very, very early on in my career while I was still in construction, and it was a collapse of a structure whilst it was getting built. So it was a major incident with no injuries whatsoever. That, however, you're still dealing with HSE, police, fire brigade, everyone comes out to deal with the incident. The area's got to be made safe. You're talking road closures, you're talking a major impact just on that one day, and that's what happens. But then these people leave, and then you're dealing with that as a business. How do we go forward? And then at that point, it was very much a sort of blame game where we're trying to pick out whose fault what happened and all that. And I was only site agent at the time. This was before I got into health and safety. And you're left there wondering, the lack of communication was just, it was intense. You didn't know what was happening. None of the senior managers were talking to us. So we were left like, are we losing our jobs? Are we, you know, and that you take that home with you because you're worried you're going to lose a job. It's not like, you know, you were hearing like everything's going to be fine. Happen. It was very, very delayed, and I think it was a good week or so later they brought me in and they talked to me, and they were like, no, that's fine, we're just going to renew the team here and you'll get moved on to pastures new, which was fine. But up at that point, you're not sleeping, you're stressed out, maybe having a few more drinks than normal to calm yourself down. So that incident that didn't have any injury impacted that small team that was there and feeling that way. So they got mental health issues right away there, that what it wasn't dealt with. And I think we were only just at the beginning of, cultural safety, that kind of thing, the behaviour and all that. So we didn't really have mental health guidance or anything like that then. But that was sort of my first one. And that was just a non-injury one. And I think then we were quite lucky. It was on the news, it was in the newspapers, but that was it. Back then there was no internet, as so to speak, no social media for that. So we were kind of able just to get through it, and it went to court and we got fined for it, and that was fine, and we carried on. As I said, no injuries, and I think that's the best of the worst outcome you can get. From that experience has made me want to learn more and more about health and safety, and that's when I decided to start doing my NEBOSH courses and become a health and safety advisor. So a few years later, still working within the same company, still in construction, we did suffer a serious injury to a subcontractor, and it was a fall from height, and that's all I can go into about that. And it was during night shift, so we weren't there. You get that phone call, nothing worse than getting a phone call. You just don't know what's going on. You don't know until you get there. That is just the worst feeling ever. As it turned out, it was a serious injury to his leg. And then after that, a year later, he did have to get his leg amputated. So the effect of that one incident was entirely preventable. That guy doesn't have his career anymore. He can't do the work, you know. So that's a huge impact. That impacts financially on that one family, you know. So that one person being injured is now affecting 2 or 3 people in his family. It's affecting the 2 or 3 people around him in his business. It's maybe affecting the people that witnessed it as well. So your stats then, from the, as I say, the 1, 2, 3 last year has suddenly grown, and now we've got this impacting on many, many more people. Then you've got claims coming in from something like that. So then you're called up as a witness by lawyers, etc. You're interviewed, obviously, even before that, with the HSE, and it's not a very nice feeling being interviewed under caution, especially when, you know, if you've never had that before. So again, it's a very stressful situation. And again, it was that, like, what should we do? I was health and safety advisor, put onto that site, and then put on to night shift. So there I had to go into night shift to make sure, like, that didn't happen again. And that's obviously just a reactive to that incident. Excuse me a minute. Yeah, so I think that got settled out of court because I never actually went to court with that one. So that was quite good, because I think I've been witness once in court, and that's enough. You don't want to be doing that at all. So the best to just avoid these situations where we can. And obviously these accidents all impact on insurances and stuff for the company, and, you know, its reputation, as we say, you know, especially with that one never seen that appear in newspaper or anything like that. So that was quite good. It didn't impact that way. And through my next incident that I'll talk about, I'll tell you how social media can impact as well. So yeah, that was pretty much that for that. I was kind of okay because I never saw anything with that. I kind of came in at the back end of it. But you are dealing with that stress of the project managers and that, going, right, how, you know, they feel that they're under the watchful eye of the senior management and stuff like that. So you're trying to do everything right for them as well. So it does become stressful for a while. And again, a time before really we had anything in place like we have nowadays for mental health, that, you know, employee assistance program where you can pick up a phone and talk to someone and that kind of thing. So I would encourage anything like that. But this is more so. So I've kind of dealt with this, and I knew going into a job that this impacted my life, my personal life, so much, dealing with these incidents, especially the first one where I knew that I had sleepless nights. I was turning to drink a wee bit just to go to sleep to try, and so I was so stressed out. And I sold this, well, I did sell it, but, you know, I did a presentation on this years ago to a board of, like, senior managers, directors, that kind of thing. And I guess I didn't think they hadn't really dealt with anything like that. And they just kind of went, you know, this is an all right presentation. Little did we know at that time that they were actually going to go through it all, and me again, when we suffered a major incident at that place of work. So it may sound a bit cheesy, me talking about it, like the kind of, oh, they're stressed, I drank, I smoked, I did this, you know, but that's it. Essentially was. I can't describe exactly how I'm feeling, because obviously emotions are very, very difficult. And back then I was a very emotional person. I was young. I was only in my 20s dealing with this. So, you know, and life experience does help. So I'm going to move on. This one's a little bit more difficult to talk about. we did have a fatality, unfortunately, at our place of work. It was 5 years ago Tuesday, so it's pretty raw still. When it comes on around to the anniversary, I don't think one person doesn't forget how they felt that day. You relive it. There's just that feeling of, again, I wasn't on site for this. I had to drive over from another site. I may have got caught in a few speeding cameras trying to get through here, and not knowing what had happened because we couldn't communicate. We were obviously driving, and not knowing what had happened, if it was just a serious injury or, you know, the worst had happened. So arrive on site, you see the gate shut, you know that something bad's going on. Everything you see the ambulances, you see fire brigade, you see the police, you see the HSE. They're standing about doing really nothing at this point. So you know, you really do. You just know what's happened is the worst thing ever imaginable. So arriving on site that day, we had to deal with all these officers, police, you name it, we were dealing with it. So it's obviously a police investigation at first, and then it becomes HSE. I'm sorry, is someone's microphone on? I'm getting a bit of feedback through. I can hear sort of chatting, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, so you're dealing with that, and so arrived back at site and met with one of the senior management team, and the look on his face said it all to me as well. And you have to then, this was not just a colleague, this was a friend, this was somebody I knew and got on with very well, a wee bit outside of work as well. So you've got to try and be so professional, and it's so hard because this has shook everyone. There's not one person on site that day that didn't shed a tear. Men, women, yeah, everyone. And you have to go in there and really become emotionless to deal with it. And it was my boss at the time. I was just the advisor there. So my boss, the manager, they had to deal with it, but I was there by their side, just seeing, right, this is what's going to happen next, because I'd been through similar, not through obviously with a fatality, and it is slightly different, but I knew what to expect, how the interview process was going to work. So I was there by their side, just seeing, like, this is, you need to put your brave face. We need to do our job right now. And you never think that your job would entail that. Yes, we see about it in our learning how to deal with accidents and that, but having to switch off emotions is a very, very difficult thing, especially when your fellow colleagues are upset, shocked, whatever. So you're dealing with that initially on the day. And my colleague, he was the first aider to go to the incident, and yeah, it's like shell shock. He was just honest. Never ever seen my colleague like that. So you're comforting him and making sure that he's okay, you know, and just talking him through it and just telling him everything's fine. You know, you've done everything you could, and so you're dealing with that all day, and you get to the end of the day. And I'm not going to lie, I literally just broke into pieces by the end of the day. There's just, I don't think anything could console me at that point. I just hugged friends, I had hugged colleagues, I'd spoken to so many folk that were, you know, and the same question going, why, how, you know, questions that we couldn't answer. So we're just like, you know, can't talk about it, it's just under investigation, you know, and just like that. Immediately though, with this incident, we were able to give each of our colleagues straight away counselling. Everyone got a phone call that night. We put out we had it as part of our occupational health. So anyone that wanted it, there was a phone call at least. And if they wanted to take it further, they could. That was under their discretion. That wasn't, you know, our decision. At that point, I didn't take anything because I didn't think, I thought I was fine, which we'll get onto later, just how quickly that can diminish. So that's day one. But I go home now to my family and I am just distraught. I am crying my eyes out. I am upset. My husband doesn't know what to do with me. My daughter doesn't know. She's young. She's 5, 6. She's trying to comfort me. That breaks you down even more. And I'm living in this absolute little bubble that just can't think of anything else other than what went on at work that day. And you can't switch that off. Like normally I'm one laptop shut, I go home, that's home time. But this doesn't. This sticks with you, and it doesn't just stick for you for days. We're talking forever. After that day though, a couple of other things though. Once the HSE, the police, the fire, they all leave. They just leave. And you're left dead. You are left. There's no cleanup, put it that way. When they come, you do that. So one of our own had to clean up that scene. And that obviously affected him greatly. I don't think he showed at work the next day after that. And I get that. I wouldn't that. And I think that was kind of the biggest shock to me. I didn't realise that something like that would happen. But that did. So yeah. So I don't think you can ever take images away like that when you've seen something like that. So he's going home to his wife or partner or whatever, and that's going home with them too. So that's affecting that family. Now that day, I don't know, there was hundreds of us on that site. So those hundreds are going home with that stress, that upset, that anxiety, whatever it is that day, and they're taking that home to their family. So immediately that's impacting outside of work. It's impacting people that don't get the help from your work, that don't maybe fully understand what's going on. So yeah, so relationships do suffer outside of work, certainly. But relationships in work become stronger because you've gone through something like this. I still talk to a lot of the people about that day. We comfort each other every year when the anniversary comes up, because you just absolutely dread that date coming up. You hate writing it down, everything. So yeah, but as I said, we were very lucky. We had help. We had mental health was a big thing now, so we were able to get the assistance that we needed for that. But a few days, you have a lot of people in a large company that may not know the person that sadly passed away, and they don't. So there's no feeling. You know them personally, so they may not be using their name, that kind of thing, and then that really takes a big toll. That gets you quite angry, and that was, I think, one of the big sort of things that I found out, because I don't know how many of you are health and safety advisors or etc. on here, but the times that you've asked for things to be done to make the place safer, and they're like, no, not yet, and then the few days after that incident, everything that we'd asked for got done, and you can't believe how much rage I had, because I was like that. Not that these things would have prevented that accident, but it just goes to show that what we were saying was right. So to me, to this day, don't understand why it took that to be in. It took for something like that to be in place. So, as advisors, we need to be listened to, so that all this safety stuff is in place. So yes, you do suffer a lot of anger, and I did go then for counselling for that, because it's not a nice thing to be like that at work. You don't want to come across that way, but you're very, very angry about everything, and then the constant why, how, what ifs, and the what ifs will drive you absolutely insane. And I just remember, speaking with my colleague, he said, what I say, there is no what ifs. We done what we could, or you done what you could, that's it. But you still live. What if I was there? What if what if we'd done this? What if, you know, and you, as I said, you drive yourself absolutely crazy going through what ifs. Excuse me a minute. So that, then you take that, so that you're still talking weeks and weeks of the investigation going in. We did an internal investigation as well. You've got the HSE investigating as well. And it's all hands on, you're trying to get paperwork together, and it is a nerve-wracking thing. And then everyone's interviewed under caution as well. So and these are maybe just the employees on the line or whatever. So you've got to try and counsel them through it and talk, say it's fine, just tell exactly what it is. No one's getting into trouble here. But they were all stressing about it, and and I think that's the big thing here, is how just we as advisors can we have to bottle our feelings and then help these other people through it. But you have to then listen to a lot of stories about what happens, because they may come to you, they might go to someone else to talk about. And one of the guys that was near when the incident happened wouldn't talk about it at all, and that's fine. That's entirely his decision. And I just remember it was a year later that he did speak to me about it, and it was just out the blue, and it was quite a shock to me, because I relived that day again with him, So as I say, it never goes away, and it's good that we actually, afterwards, we did carry out some mental health first aid training, so we were kind of aware of how to deal with this in-house, as well as being able to provide outside counselling. And I think the big thing as well at this point is social media. Oh, now, if I was angry about other things, social media, it's ridiculous, the stories that were getting made up about what happened. And I frankly found it quite disgusting, because that family's going to read that, and that's not fair, because it wasn't what happened, what was getting put out there. And obviously we couldn't talk about it, you couldn't correct them, we just had to let it go and try and avoid social media. And then we did get the yard opened up, and there was all the drivers from third parties. Oh, I'm not going, this happened and this happened. And we're just like, do you know what? No, you don't know what happens, so don't come in here saying these things and then affecting everyone else again, just with your almost negativity and stories that you've heard on the internet. So that, you're left with like trying to explain what happened without telling what happened, because obviously we're not allowed to speak about stuff like that. But yeah, so I really, the big sort of outcome from that was eventually that family that I had within that workplace split up. It's just too much to try and continue on after dealing with something like that. Everyone that I worked with more or less left at different points, and I was kind of there myself at one point, and then we were coming up to year 2 anniversary, and that's when I just absolutely had what can more or less be I was a mental breakdown. I think really what it was. I was under a lot of pressure at work, trying to do things, and this was always looming over me. And maybe I'm just an emotional person as well, but I think I let it build up for a long time, and I really was quite unwell. But I was able again to get help and counselling, which I'd recommend to everyone. I still see my lady now, and we just talk about everything, so I don't stress about things and I don't bottle things up, because that is just a huge impact. Unfortunately, that incident made me look at my life, my values. The person in question was only 28. He never got to live his life. His 3-year-old son will never know him. Never, he'll see photographs, but he'll never know who his dad was. We were fortunate enough to have been in his life and know him, and he was a great guy. So yeah, my husband at the time time, well, my husband at the time, I shouldn't- my husband, it didn't quite understand where I was coming from. So it did lead to a lot of stress on relationships and stuff like that. It was very, very difficult for me. And I'd learned to learn positivity, you know, through counselling stuff. So that's what I wanted. I didn't want negativity in my life. That I had the biggest impact ever in my life, and I'm not doing that again, and I'm going to do this, and I want to be positive. And that's, I suppose, a nice thing that came out of it, was like me kind of coming this Zen person almost. So I don't get as angry anymore and stuff like that. And we did go into COVID, so we had a bit of a lull with things when we were shut down. But ultimately, the way I have come out of this other side of the accident has now led to the breakdown of my marriage. And I just want to be a free person and be positive and stuff like that. And I just can't. That's something dealing with me. But that just shows you how one incident has impacted only on me, and God knows what it's done to everyone else that was there that day. I know my colleague came to me the other week. We don't work together anymore, but we're still very, very close. And he was dealing with something at his work, and a colleague had passed. It's not through work related or anything like that. And he's like, it just threw up memories of what happened that day. And I was like, right, okay. And I was talking to him about it, and I was saying, look, you didn't matter where you were that day, that was going to happen whether you were there or not. And it's the same thing. And I says, don't feel guilty about it, because that's what I did, and the guilt will eat you up. And it's just, it doesn't do anyone any good to feel that way, or anyone around you when you're feeling that way. So yeah, so even now, 5 years later, we're still counselling each other through it. We're still helping each other through what happened that day. You see men, friends, like cry, that are such strong men, and you when you witness them break down, it's very, very, that is very emotional for me. And yeah, I'll relive that day forevermore. I don't think I can ever forget about it. Like, talking about those other earlier incidents, yeah, they're faded away. I'll never forget them, because it brought me to where I am today. And certainly the details are getting more hazy as the older I get. But this one I will never forget it. And obviously I'm working in a different place now, and I'll remind the guys out there, and I'll be like, they've never, maybe, let's touch wood here, hurt themselves or anything. So I'm like, I've seen it, I've dealt with it, and I don't want you to be put through the same thing. So let's just stay as safe as we possibly can here. Let's get things right. And I think very open with two-way communication, and it has helped us deal with any not incidents, but any issues that the guys have out there. I'm very open to them, like, let's do it right, let's do it properly. How do you think it should be done? This is the way I think it. So I think my communication with everything's got better, and I'm making sure as soon as anything comes in, whether it's new, hired, that we do the full safety checks are all done, and is everyone trained on it, right? We'll sit at the side until everyone's trained on it, that kind of thing. So we don't try and rush things. So it's a nice pace of life, and I think that we should all do that. There's no 5 minutes isn't a long time, half an hour isn't a long time, an hour isn't a long time, a day isn't a long time, a lifetime is. And as a result of an accident, a fatality, you take someone's life away, and then you take it from everyone else surrounding that person. And it's not just family, it's friends, it's colleagues. So yeah, I think that's kind of the biggest impact that I never want to relive again. I don't think I could do it again. I don't want to. But yeah, and I dare say yous have all maybe experienced something, or maybe not so much fatality, but even a major incident, you know, when someone is off work or they can't come back to work, or they're off work for 6 weeks. That person is sitting about for 6 weeks, you know, worrying, is their job going to be there? You know, did I do something right? If they hurt the leg, am I going to walk properly again? How much physio, you know, how much, you know, can I take this time off because I've got financial needs? And especially these days, God, you don't want to take any, you don't want to, nobody wants to be on sick pay these days with the cost of living and stuff like that. So yeah, so I do think, when we've always talked about accidents before, we look at the impact on a business, but the business is made up of people, and the people are what make the business. So they're the ones we need to look after and make sure that anything that does happen at work doesn't impact them, you know, mentally or financially, anything like that. But also, that's why we do our jobs, and that's why we love doing our jobs, is to make sure that everything is done safely and we don't actually have to deal with this or lead anyone through this again. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it, and I'm kind of hanging on to my emotions here a wee bit. So yeah, so I don't know if anyone wants to talk about maybe any instance they've had, or if you've indeed got any questions for me about what. No, I can't really go. I'm not going to go into details of exactly what happened, but I can maybe tell you if, you know, what happens when the HSE arrive and stuff like that. If you do have any questions, do you want to? I think this is a chat function or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amanda, thank you. First and foremost, I don't know, you said you were hanging on to your emotions. I think there's probably, I would imagine, including myself, quite a few people listening to you hanging on to their emotions as well. So thanks for your honesty and your openness in terms of sharing your experiences, and you know, from the as you described, the sort of minor incident, the first one, well, relatively minor in comparison to in the first one, right through to obviously the extremely serious, and you know, as you said, in your life, it's still an ongoing thing in your life that happened those years ago. But no, that was what was so powerful for me in that was, you know, as you said, we quite often talk about impacts of health and safety incidents and how they impact on a business, how they impact on the financial performance of a business, perhaps, or the reputation of a business. But it was very clear to me, while all those things are very, very important, it was very clear to me and very impactful to me, and hopefully others as well, that, you know, we're focusing on people there, and, you know, people on there is who were, you know, impacted by the incidents, both looking in but involved, but also talking about the victims as well. So yeah, you know, thank you for that. That was really, really good. I've got a couple of questions in my mind that I maybe just to kick us off, and there is one question in the chat, and obviously if anybody's got any other questions or points that they want to raise or anything, just please use that chat function to do that. It strikes me, Amanda, that you know, as a health and safety professional, you know, dealing with a serious incident that you described, it's a huge personal undertaking, and a huge ask of someone who is there to do their job as a health and safety professional, but, you know, having to deal with that wider impact of a extremely serious, you know, a fatality. And I'd like to just ask you, I mean, do you think that I think that perhaps it's not understood and appreciated widely what health and safety professionals have to deal with? Would you agree with that, or would you have other thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I do think there's a very old school stigmata with stigma about bloody health and safety advisors, I think they all think we're just there to police and shout, but at the end of the day, we are there in the background, putting things into place and then actually dealing with this. And whether that's somebody that's come in with a cut finger or something like that, you're still investigating everything. And I think that day there was so much reliance on the health and safety team to be there for everyone that you just had to act the way, and as I said, hold on to your emotions. So yeah, I do think no one would realise, but I kind of hope that folk don't realise, because then they would have had to deal with that big an incident. And as much as we get, you go through all your different courses, I don't think anything can prepare you for that day. You just know this is what needs to happen in an investigation, and you just go through that like almost like a robot, automatic. Right, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen next. Then this is going to happen, and you just have to do it very methodically to get through it. But I don't think anyone would fully understand that unless you've had to sort of deal with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely. Another wee question, sort of looking back to your the first incident you described, you know, to the present day. Obviously, Switch's role in the industry, as we've outlined earlier, is to raise standards in health and safety, and promote education, training, and competence across the industry as well.
Yeah.
But looking back to that first incident to today, do you think procedures and processes in relation to health and safety, do you think that they've in general have improved since that first incident to where we are now?
Absolutely, yes. For me personally as well, from what I've seen as well, I think that was at a stage where, like, as I said, I was only site agent, but you'd have the team would sit in at the head office and write everything and give you it, and then you just put it in nice folders and it sat there and you got folk to sign it. Nothing was really relevant to the job at that point. And I think that's how things have changed, where everything has to be done specific for that job, for that site, that kind of thing. So that's changed. And I do think there is a vast improvement with technology as well, as I've often said, has helped. And I see that more and more really in the waste industry, which I've briefly talked before. And I do think that the waste industries, it was dangerous before because you were using machines and stuff that had maybe been hodgepodged from agricultural, forestry, quarries, that kind of thing. Whereas now we're getting our own bespoke machines that are for waste. So obviously the safety there is just 100 times better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right, there's one question here from Charla McKenna. She comments that it sounds like an extremely important but very emotionally difficult role that you're performing. She's interested to know what keeps you going, and are you still glad that you chose that path?
What keeps me going? My daughter, absolutely, 100%. That's that. I've got my family, my friends, just that sort of coming from a dark time at one point. That was always my light at the end of the tunnel. Was my baby. So she's just helps me through everything, even though she's only 11, but she's just very clued into emotions, which I think most girls at that age are. But yeah, so I don't regret any paths. I believe that mistakes can be made, but you learn from them, and you have to move on. Sometimes you need to make a few mistakes here and there. I wouldn't change anything. I look back and there's maybe nothing that I would change in any time in my path to the journey. I think it's where I'm meant to be. Certainly from when I started off, I should have been a civil engineer and probably a really nice, highly paid project manager by now. But I chose the health and safety route, so here we are. But 100%. I just know that my experience it's going to help now. It's not a nice experience, but if I can help others not have to relive what I did, then that's fine. And I think that's what keeps you going as well. And I want folk to know. And as much as I'm keen to them to hear my story, that's a lot of people's stories I was telling today as well. So, and I think that wee voice needs to be heard sometimes.
100%, couldn't agree more. Yeah, and I think, you know, you chose the health and safety route, and I think the health and safety sector would be a poorer place without you, Amanda, and I mean that.
Thanks,
So,
Jim.
but yeah, I think what you're doing today, you know, sharing your story and your experiences, and the people round about you as well, you know, I think even by doing that, I think, you know, it's that helps, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tragic what happened, absolutely tragic, obviously for the person concerned and their family and friends, etc. But you know, you've been able to talk as openly and freely as you have done about that, you know, the emotions, about the people involved, and how people are still affected today. But you're talking, and you've gone and you've had, you know, counselling, and others have as well. You know, all of that can only help. You know, it can only help. It can only help. Hopefully, people who maybe have experienced similar things but not had, you know, the routes to go down that perhaps you have in terms to get some support. So
I think anyone that's dealt with any major incident, go and talk about it. Honestly, it's the best thing you can do. Don't let it bottle up for 2 years like what I did. Do you know what I mean? And then it just so honestly, and even if you feel that you're not, you know, the best thing about counselling is it's very selfish. You get to talk about you, and I just can't describe how much that just lets a lot out, and it's everything you bottle up that you don't want to say, you say to a complete stranger, and it feels great. That's why I'm able to talk about this today, because I have done that and I'm very open about it. I'm not embarrassed by it, and I don't think anyone should be, and I'm hoping that isn't, you know, what people think about counselling. It doesn't make me a weaker person. It doesn't at all. It just makes me be able to carry on and do my job and do this.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes you a stronger person, I think. And as you say, you're articulating that very, very well today. So yeah, more power to you. David Balmer just has made a comment, which I think it's worth sharing. That he's saying it's a very honest and open conversation that you've given, but with a very, very difficult situations, and he's offering his empathy. And he can empathise with the trauma that follows when everything else just moves on, but people don't forget ever. And I think that's kind of what you've been saying as well. It kind of reiterates what you've been saying, I think. One of the other things I think that has come over very strongly as well is that you know, mental health and well-being. Again, it's something that maybe years ago didn't have that same focus. It was, you just need to, you know, dust yourself down and get on with it. Do you think that the change in culture is maybe helped things over recent years?
Oh, definitely it has. And don't get me wrong, over here at West Coast of Scotland, guys tend to do not talk about their emotions. I've found out over the numerous years I've worked with them through construction and waste. So there is still that with a lot of the sort of older generation. They do think, oh no, I'll just bottle this up and we'll talk about it later, or we'll not talk about it at all. But yeah, there certainly is improvement. It's more accessible now, and it's more acceptable now, which I think is the thing to get help when you need it. And I will not discourage anyone from reaching out. Like I say, employee assistance programs that are there, you get signed up for whatever it is. A lot of them you get free through some of the certificates you sign up for, and that just advertise it. Your employees, etc., don't need to come to you if they don't want to. There's a number there, and you just phone it up and they can get that help if they need it. And that's for everything, whether that's a financial thing, emotional thing, or work thing, or anything. It's there for them. And I just think this stuff is so readily accessible that we should utilise it and keep utilising it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just one other question for me. Just occurred to me really that, again, dealing with situations that just happen instantly, of various different degrees of severity, but quite often, as you say, it involves automatically the police arriving on site, the fire brigade, the HSE. How do you feel, or I'm not articulating this question very well, but what I guess I'm meaning is, you or someone like you is just going about their day normally, looking at how waste is segregated, making sure machinery is moving in the right places and all that, and then all of a sudden you've got these, emergency services looking at you and asking you questions, wanting you to direct them and put them in the right. How do you feel dealing with situations and organisations like that when it just happens on you, and you're just an ordinary, you and others like you're just ordinary people doing their daily jobs, not expecting to have to deal with that sort of thing?
I think it's an automatic thing. I don't think you really think about it. I mean, as people here know, a day in waste you don't get to do 9 o'clock, we sit down and do this, 10 o'clock, we'll go on to this. It's just whatever happens. So you're kind of used to dealing with your day being maybe upset with something else going on and you can't quite. So that's why you have 60 million projects left open when you're trying to do things. So I think it comes from me back to that first instance. I was like 24 or something when that happened. I was very 24, 25, so kind of young, naive. Authority was really quite frightening and stuff like that. And then obviously, as I've got older, a bit more life behind me and experience, shall we say, and so dealing with it was like, that's it. They're just doing their job as well. So you can just do that. It's just, as I said, it's an automatic thing, and you don't really think about it. It happens sometimes.
Click into gear.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
you do, because you're used to waiting. Maybe you get a visit from maybe SEPA or HSE, things like that. So you're kind of ready for dealing with that. That's just part of the job, but it's just not something that you do every day or every month or maybe every year. Do you know what I mean? It's just I think the big thing when there is so many police in that, you get the oglers from outside taking the photos and putting it up on social media nowadays without knowing the facts, and that's the worst bit, I think, because then they're just making up stories. And by that point, from that instant, we had the story was up on Facebook before we could even contact the next of kin. That's how quickly it was, and that's how frustrating and how desperate you're trying to get hold of someone before they see that on social media. Honestly, I just think we're just a bit too quick with the old camera phones nowadays.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, social media. Yeah, well, it's got a lot of benefits. Yeah, absolutely. I think impacts in so many ways. And in these sorts of situations, it's less than helpful at times, I think.
100%.
Okay, so Gordon Whiteford's just made a comment that unfortunately it's the real stories and experiences shared that are best heard, and I think that's that's been I think you've demonstrated that today, Amanda. It's great you said that you've had the support and now the strength needed to share and help others. So that's brilliant. And Elspeth Watson has commented that the unions Unite, GMB and Unison are planning, I didn't know this, are planning a workers' memorial garden at Glasgow Green to remember those workers who've lost their lives at work. So there you are.
Oh, yes.
That might be something you want to pick up on.
Definitely, thank you.
Yeah. I don't have any other questions. I don't know if there's any other quick questions anybody wants to pop into the chat box. If not, I think we'll sort of wrap up and conclude. Nothing else coming through. So two things I'll say, just to remind everybody that the next webinar is on Thursday the 27th of April, so please, if you haven't already, sign up for that. And again, there'll be one again in May on machinery safety and maintenance. So please just get on the website, as we mentioned earlier, sign up for updates, and you'll receive details of all of these things that are happening in our newsletter as well that we send out. And Yaz is very helpfully just put that up again. So it's switchforum.org.uk. And finally, just again, just on behalf of Switch Forum and behalf of everyone that's attended, first of all, thank you to everybody that's attended. We're very grateful for you coming along and joining these monthly webinars. So thanks for coming along and spending the time with us this morning. And finally, thank you, Amanda, again for a really, really heartfelt presentation and talk, and for being so, as I mentioned earlier, so open and honest. It was a wonderful and really, open and honest sharing of your experiences, and we're grateful for you doing that and for your time as well.
No, thank you for letting me have a platform to talk about it. So thank you, and thank you for everyone for listening and sticking with it. I know I maybe waffled a wee bit. I was a bit nervous.
Not at all, not at all. No, it was great. So again, thanks very much, everybody, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
And stay safe.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.